True Crime Brewery contains disturbing content related to real-life crimes. Medical information is opinion based on facts of a crime and should not be interpreted as medical advice or treatment. Listener discretion is advised.
Chad and another fellow told me, Chad, what's his name? Marcus. Chad and Marcus told me that during the vigil, you told them you were 75% sure who took Haleigh.
There is no way. I do not know who took Haleigh. If I had 5% of where Haleigh was at, I would be there now and not here.
Did you tell them that though? Maybe you weren't. Maybe you were just boasting.
No.
Are they lying?
Yes, they're absolutely lying. No, for no reason have I ever told anybody that have any clue where my child is at. If I had any clue where my child, national TV, they're a bunch of liars. Chad and whoever told you this are a bunch of liars. I never even spoke with them.
They told me that you hit Haleigh. Is that true?
No, never, ever have I ever hit my child. Me and my child have an agreement. Daddy, daughter, she has been spanked on her behind the way DCF says that you can take care of discipline your children.
You never backhanded her to the face?
Never have I ever backhanded my child in the face, ever.
Did you hit Crystal when she was pregnant?
No, I did not. Never.
You didn't hit her in the back of the head and kick her?
No, I never have.
You swear to God you never hit your pregnant woman?
Never have I ever hit any woman. Period. Never.
And you've never been involved in the drug trade?
No.
And when they tell me they saw bricks of marijuana that you had in the house and plants all around the house, is that a lie?
It is absolutely a lie, and I would like to know where the information is coming from so that I can get the proper authorities to take care of this.
To put all this stuff aside, if some associate of yours, some associate that had something to do with drugs, and this is not about drugs, but if these people are on the dark side of life, don't you think that you should share that information? Tell us about when you told Marcus and Chad that you were 75% sure, and you had your gun ready, and you had your gun ready, and you were going to go get him. Didn't you say that? Isn't that a fact, Ron?
No, it is not a fact.
Why would they make that up for? Why would they make that up for you?
I don't know why they would make it hard for you, but I am fixing to have the law called right here, right now, because you're making up things, or they're making up things, and you're getting it.
I am relating to you what they are saying.
I don't believe that. He's back off. That's my son.
I'm sorry. I am sorry for what has happened.
No, you're not sorry. We are You want to come up here and make commercial allegations? Why don't you go back to
These are not my allegations, ma'am. These are not my allegations. You have to understand that. You have to understand this is not my allegation. Don't touch him. Don't touch him, please. We'll leave him. Come on, let's go. Let's go.
I wanted you to see that all this is about is my daughter. I love you, baby. If you were out there, I want you to know that I love you, and I will find you, baby. I love you. And to whoever has you, please bring my daughter home to me. I love my daughter. I love you, baby. I will find you.
You believe she's alive then?
I'm always going to believe that my daughter's alive until they find her.
Welcome to True Crime Brewery. I'm Jill.
And I'm Dick. Good evening. Hurricane Harvey hit Texas harder than we ever could have imagined. Since making landfall, Harvey has been one of the most destructive and devastating natural disasters in recent history.
Unbelievable.
Thousands of people are stranded and in need of assistance. Now, thoughts and prayers are one thing, but it is going to take money to rebuild, and it is going to take a long, long time for Houston to recover. So please visit youcaring.com and search for Houston flood relief. There are many organizations in need of donations to help the people affected and made homeless by the storm. And it looks like we're probably going to be saying the same thing about Hurricane Irma.
Might be even worse.
Might be.
Yeah.
Looks like a disaster.
Yeah, so anyone who can afford it, $5 or $10 each will really go a long way.
Dig into your wallets, folks.
That's right. So, Dick, it's been 8.5 years since anyone has seen Haleigh Cummings alive. When she was last seen on February 9th, 2009, she was 5 years old. She would now be 13. Her 17-year-old babysitter at the time, Misty Croslin, the girlfriend of her 25-year-old father, Ronald Cummings, called police at 3:30 a.m. on February 10th. Now, she'd waited until Ron came home from work to make the call. Misty claimed that she was asleep and woke up at 3 a.m. to find Haleigh missing. There was an open door propped with a cinder block. Now, over the years, Misty's story has undergone intense scrutiny. The troubled, drug-riddled lives of the adults in Haleigh's life have led to endless speculation and theories, but the case still remains unsolved. So in this episode of True Crime Brewery, The Lost Girl, we're talking about one of the most notorious missing child cases in the United States. No one has been held responsible for the abduction or the murder of Haleigh, but she is assumed dead. So who is responsible, and will justice ever be served? What does it say about our society when a 5-year-old girl can disappear and the people charged with her care and her well-being are going unpunished for it? We're going to talk about that. So as always, Dick, our beer expert and champion of the quiet end, has a beer review and a recommendation for us.
I do, although I've gone a little further south than the area where the crime occurred. So I'm going to talk about a beer called Miami Madness, which is brewed by J. Wakefield Brewing in Miami, Florida. Now, Miami Madness is a Berliner Weissbier, one of your favorite styles.
It is. I love them.
So, Weissbier is a wheat beer made with traditional yeast and lactobacillus. They have a rapidly vanishing head and a clear, pale golden appearance. Taste is tart, sour, and acidic, with a lemony citric fruit sharpness and little to no hop bitterness. So that pretty much describes them, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. Is this fairly light?
Very light.
Yeah.
4.5%.
Okay, so you can drink them all day, as you say.
You can. Go for it. So this particular one, Miami Madness, actually looks a little like a glass of orange juice, and it has a very thin to almost non-existent white head. There's a sweet fruit aroma, and you get that sensation or the aroma of tartness to it. It has a taste that's like sour passion fruit. Really nice.
Sounds lovely.
It's a nice tart, dry beer, very highly rated. So if you like sours, you like Weiss beers, give this one a go.
Okay. Good advice. Let's open it up and take it down to the quiet end.
All right.
Okay, Dickie, let's take the snifters and the beer and head on down.
Yeah, look who's there, our buddies.
I saw that, yeah.
So the Ascot gold chain guy is wearing neither, like I suggested to him.
Good, good.
And the toupee guy looks like they're double dating or something.
I know, but he still has the toupee.
Well, it may be a little different looking.
You think so? Is it better?
I'd say it's better.
So maybe he just upgraded?
Well, he looks like he's having fun.
Well, you can have fun with the bad toupee.
I guess.
Yeah.
But I know how you women are. You pick on toupee wearers.
Yeah, but they have some nice looking dates, so I think things are looking up at the quiet end.
They look happy.
All right, let's take our beer down there.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, so if you haven't heard the 911 call that was made on the night that Haleigh disappeared, you may be the only one. I mean, it's very widespread. It's been played on many TV shows, of course, not the least of which is Nancy Grace, our favorite.
Our favorite, yes.
So,
but it is a fascinating tape.
It is, and if you haven't heard it lately, it's probably a good idea to listen to it. So I am going to play it now, and for anybody who doesn't want to hear it again, it lasts about 6 minutes. So let's play it now and just get that out of the way, and then we can talk about it a little bit.
Okay.
I just woke up and our back door was wide open and we can't find our daughter.
Can't find what?
Our daughter.
Okay, what's your address?
Green Lane. What is that mean?
What's the numerical?
Yeah, miracle, what's that?
The number? Green Lane?
Yes.
Okay, when did you last see her?
We were just it was about 10 o'clock. She was sleeping, I was cleaning.
Okay, how old is your daughter?
She's 5.
Okay, what was she last seen wearing? Ma'am?
She was in her pajamas. We were sleeping.
Okay, you said your back door was wide open?
Yeah, it was a brick. Like a brick on the floor. Like when I went to sleep, the door was not like that.
Okay, the back door, listen to me, your back door was wide open. What are you talking about, a brick?
Yes.
What is the brick?
It's on the back door on the stairs. Like we have like a walkway.
Uh-huh. And there was a brick laying there?
Yes, it's still there. They are.
We got them coming. Tell them we got them coming.
They're coming.
Okay, what's the color of your house, ma'am?
It's blue.
It's blue? Okay. Okay, what does she look like? How tall is she? Give me some description of her.
She has like long hair, curly, like curls.
Long, curled, what color?
She's white.
Okay, what
and
color
she's got hair.
Brown hair?
Yeah. Oh my God, it's so old.
How tall is she about? Or how much does she weigh? Do you know that?
Huh?
About how tall or how much does she weigh?
Like 4 something, like, I don't know, like, she's not that tall.
Yeah, tell your husband we got him coming, okay?
Okay.
How much does she weigh? Do you know?
Huh?
How much does she weigh?
Like 40, 50 pounds, 60 pounds.
40 to 60 pounds?
Yeah.
Okay, let me get your name and phone number.
My name is...
Spell your last name?
Oh, I just woke up.
Okay, was your back door locked, do you know?
Yes, but that's what always stays locked.
Man, I need somebody to get here now.
Okay, let me speak to him so he
Here.
I just got home from work. My 5-year-old daughter is gone. I need
Okay.
somebody to be here now. I'm telling you.
Listen to me. We got 2 officers.
If I find whoever has my daughter before y'all do, I'm killing them. I don't care. I'll spend the rest of my life in prison. I'm telling you, you can put it on record, and I don't care.
Okay, it's okay, sir. We got him on the way. Okay, can you give me what kind of description of her pajamas that she was wearing?
I don't fucking know. I got work.
Okay, sir, we got him coming, okay?
Hello?
Okay, sir, let me talk to your wife. So let me get some information from her.
Man,
Okay.
I fucking know.
Can I talk to her?
Yeah, man.
Okay.
How the fuck do you let my daughter go, bitch?
Ma'am?
Yeah.
Okay, listen to me. I need you to answer some questions. Does the door look like it was pried open?
Yeah.
Does it look like you had someone try to enter into your house?
Hold on.
And another thing, make sure you and your husband don't touch the door anymore. Don't mess with the door or anything.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't look like it is?
No.
Okay, now listen, tell your husband to not touch anything. Make sure it's because we're going to try to get a canine out there. Okay?
She said don't touch anything because they're bringing canine out here.
They better motherfucking bring something in. If I find that motherfucker killing him, I don't give a fuck about prison. Prison don't scare me.
Okay, we understand. What's her name? How do you spell her first name? What's her middle name? And the spelling of the last name is...
Well, that's my last name. That's not hers. Her name is... Where'd you do it?
What's her date of birth? Okay, well, tell them we understand. We need to get her date of birth.
What's her date of birth?
Fucking date of birth is. We need to find her. Fuck her date of birth.
Okay, listen to me. I'm getting this information. I'm not the officer driving out there, okay?
Okay.
They're coming out there to handle that situation. I need to gather all information from you over the phone. It has nothing to do with me driving out there. The officers are taking care of that, okay? They're coming out there, okay?
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to stay on the phone with you, okay?
Okay.
Until they get there. All right, hang on. Tell him we got him coming. He needs to try to calm down a little bit, okay? The officers are going to come out there and do what they can. We can't have him screaming and yelling at the officers whenever they get there, okay?
Got better people to talk to than a fucking motherfucker that ain't coming.
So this call was made at about 3:30 in the morning. Misty said that she had been asleep woke up and found Haleigh missing. Now, sleeping in the same room with Haleigh was Misty and Haleigh's brother, Ron Jr. They called him Junior, and he was 4 years old.
Yeah, I think he was technically 3, but he turned 4 shortly after, so he was pretty much a 4-year-old.
Okay.
Just to be specific.
Thanks.
Okay.
Now, there were 2 beds in this one bedroom. Misty was in the one bed with Junior, and Haleigh was sleeping 4 feet away in the second bed. Misty made the 911 call about 30 minutes after she realized that Haleigh was missing. She apparently waited until Haleigh's father returned home from work. She made attempts at calling Ron to tell him that Haleigh was missing, but he hadn't answered.
Right, that's her story.
Right. After he pulled into the driveway and came up to the house, he told Misty to call 911.
Right, so Misty said she put the children to bed at approximately 8 p.m., and then she went to bed 2 hours later at 10 p.m. after doing laundry. She said she woke up at 3 a.m. to go to the bathroom. She noticed the kitchen light was on, and she saw that the door was held open with a cinder block. Now you're going to see through this episode how there are a lot of holes in this story.
There sure are.
Yeah.
Yes.
So on the 911 call, you can hear Ronald Cummings, and he's pretty disturbing to listen to. He's yelling, swearing, making threats. Investigators claim that there was no sign of a forced entry into the mobile home, even though Misty and Ron both claimed that the back door had been locked, that they always kept it locked.
Yeah, so how did they get in without forcibly gaining entry?
That's a good question. Now, what clues do we get from this 911 call? There are several. Now, does the call indicate that there was a staged crime scene? You might say it does because of them saying the door was locked and there's no signs of it being pried or broken into.
That's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the cinder block propping the door open, to me, is another thing.
That's very odd.
But you'll talk about that.
Yeah, we will. One thing that has brought suspicions was Misty's talk about cleaning. It seemed really important to her. In a follow-up interview, she talked about washing Haleigh's blanket. She said that it smelled like pee and that she'd laundered it. Now, she didn't seem as urgent as you might expect in the call either. That's something that a lot of people have pointed out. It seemed important to her to tell the operator that she was asleep, and she's also been criticized for calling Haleigh her daughter in the call. Now, some have speculated that Misty said that to garner sympathy, but it could also just be a way to keep it simple. You're making a call about an emergency. Do you really need to explain that you're the stepmother or the father's girlfriend?
Yeah. Plus, I mean, she's living with the guy, right? I
So
mean,
she's-
even though that was a fairly recent thing.
Yes.
But they were living together. I don't have any problem with her saying it was her daughter.
Okay. Well, some people have pointed that out, so
Yeah,
that's
I
the
know.
only reason I bring it up. Now, another thing about the call that I touched upon was how disturbed people were to hear how angry Ron was. Really being angry with Misty, more angry than concerned. He seemed more focused on killing someone than on finding his daughter. And it was never considered that maybe Haleigh had just walked out of the house on her own. Wouldn't you think of that first,
Sure.
as a parent?
Well, I would until I saw that the back door had been propped open and stuff like that. But still, I mean, I get home, my daughter's missing. Maybe she woke up and walked out.
Yeah, or if you think someone took her, maybe you'd think her mother came and got her. They didn't even seem to consider that either,
No,
which is much more common for a parent to abduct a child than a stranger.
it is. But anyway, he just jumped right up to Haleigh being kidnapped and that he wanted to kill the kidnapper.
Yeah, those were some big jumps. You
Yeah.
know, in this type of situation, there's usually some initial denial, I would think. First, a parent would want to find out some other reasons why the kid's not there.
One would think.
Like maybe she went outside for something or...
So, I mean, to me, that's kind of suspicious that maybe he already knew that she'd been abducted
Kind of, yeah.
instead of what the heck's going on. And then the thing about the brick holding open the door. The experts also saw that as evidence of a staged crime scene. No sign at all, like we mentioned, that the door had been broken or pried open. And propping the door probably isn't something a kidnapper would be likely to do. I mean, Haleigh only weighed 40 pounds.
Right.
So you could carry her out that door without any trouble. You don't need to prop it open.
Well, yeah, I would think if you're abducting a child, you're going to be in a hurry. You're not going to take your time to find a
Right.
cinder block and prop the door open.
No.
Strange. But there are a lot of strange things about this case.
It just goes on and on with strangeness.
It does. Misty's claim that someone came into the small mobile home and took Haleigh just 4 feet away from her and the little boy, was immediately scrutinized. The idea of the propped open door made investigators wonder if someone had been removing evidence from the mobile home and had propped the door so they could go in and out.
That's a reasonable thought.
Yeah. Now, the 911 call also gives us insight into the relationship between Misty and Ron, of course. I mean, the way he's yelling at her and he calls her a bitch.
I think he called her a fucking bitch.
Probably. And I know he called her a stupid bitch girlfriend or something like that, right? So she sounds frightened of him.
Well, and he sounds like he has some anger management issues.
For sure. So the idea of domestic violence doesn't seem unreasonable.
No. You come home, your child's gone missing, and the first thing you do is start yelling and screaming and ranting and raving about, I'm going to kill the fucker who took her, and swearing at his girlfriend.
It's very odd.
It's extremely odd.
Yeah.
Now, the night she disappeared, Father Ron Cummings was working at PDM Bridge. That's a bridge building company in nearby Palatka, Florida. Many questions, though, about what Misty had been doing that evening. When she talked about cleaning, many people speculated that she'd been cleaning out evidence of drug use, as well as any evidence of abuse or a possible homicide.
I think that's a reasonable thing to wonder.
It is.
Now, on the morning of February 10th, a nationwide Amber Alert was issued for Haleigh Cummings. More than 130 officers from 10 law enforcement agencies began a search for her. A 5-mile radius of the home was searched, with helicopters, water units, and bloodhounds. Ron Cummings made a tearful plea for Haleigh's return. Haleigh's 23-year-old mother, Crystal Sheffield, stood by holding a picture of Haleigh. Now Haleigh, she'd been living with her father since she was 2 years old. Her mother, Crystal, lost custody of her and her brother. According to her claims, it was because she was unaware of the court date and she missed it. But the story from Ronald Cummings was that he was awarded custody because he was the better parent. So it sounds like Haleigh didn't have great choices if he was the better of the two.
Not from that 911 call.
No. Or the things that follow, of course.
Or the things that we learn later on. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But I guess, we know that she had problems with drug abuse.
Well, and this just seemed to permeate the whole family.
Yeah. Of course, it wasn't just her.
No.
But that would be the reason to me why the father got custody of the kids.
And he had a job.
Right. She didn't.
Though he was probably more stable in some way. She didn't work, and she had repeatedly failed to take Haleigh to her doctor's appointment, so that was considered negligent. Because Haleigh, she had a condition called Turner's syndrome. Want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. How long you want me to talk?
Well, we'd like some details, because they say a little bit about it on the shows that I've found on it and on the books that I've read here and there, but I really don't know exactly what it is and what kind of things kids can really be dealing with, especially at the age of 5.
Well, let's talk about it. I would just preface it by saying that Haleigh having Turner syndrome has nothing at all to do with her disappearance.
Well, granted, yes.
Okay.
But it has something to do with the kind of kid she was.
Right. And how she was viewed by adults.
Good point, yeah.
So Turner syndrome is a syndrome where you're lacking an X chromosome. So the typical woman has 46 chromosomes, and the chromosome configuration is 46XX. You have 2 X's, and that's what makes you a female. Children with Turner syndrome, while they're female, have 45 chromosomes and only 1 X. So in effect, you're missing typically all, or at least a portion, of the X chromosome.
So it's hereditary?
No, it's not. Something goes on during meiosis and mitosis that causes an X chromosome to disappear.
Okay, so you really can't predict it then?
You can't.
Is it something
Well, you can't predict it. You can identify it prenatally by doing amniocentesis.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't see it in a regular ultrasound during a pregnancy?
Well, we're skipping ahead of things, but yeah, you could. There could be some features that would suggest that maybe the fetus had Turner syndrome.
Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead.
No, that's okay. So the syndrome was first described by Dr. Henry Turner in the late 30s. So he gets to have his name on it. Now, there's a couple of other earlier descriptions. So some people call it the Ulrich Turner syndrome. And there's another doctor whose name escapes me, who also described females with Turner syndrome. But anyway, for For what we use today, it's Turner syndrome. So these kids are without an X chromosome. The biggest problem with that is that they have what's called gonadal dysgenesis, which basically means their ovaries don't work. So they tend to be short. They tend to be borderline to slightly delayed developmentally. The average IQ is around 90. What else? So there's some features. They tend to have a low hairline in the back. They can have some webbing of the back of the neck. They can have more widely spaced nipples on their chest. It looks like a very broad chest. They can have some skeletal abnormalities in terms of their elbows and stuff. So those things. Then there's some internal organ problems besides the ovaries. Tend to have a higher incidence of thyroid disease. They tend to have a higher incidence of kidney malformations, the most common being that something called a horseshoe kidney, where it's a single kidney that looks like a horseshoe. They can have heart abnormalities. A bicuspid aortic valve is one of the most common things. Bicuspid means there's 2 leaflets, there should be 3 on the valve. They can also have coarctation of the aorta, which is a narrowing of the aorta. Leads to high blood pressure in the upper extremities.
So there are varying degrees of how much it could affect someone.
Yeah.
Okay. And we don't really know the details on her, of course, because of confidentiality.
We don't.
But she could have had a lot of complicated issues.
She could have had a lot of medical issues.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the biggest one would be the coarc. Otherwise, no. I mean, at her age, she might be small, could even be close to average in height, though. I mean, a lot of these kids don't get identified till they're supposed to be hitting their growth spurt, and they're not. They're not showing any signs of puberty or growing quicker. So that's one of the things you think about when you're presented with a 13, 14-year-old female who's not progressed in puberty.
Okay. So they're not going to be able to have children.
No.
Do they start having a period?
No.
They don't have puberty?
They don't.
Okay.
So they need to have hormone replacement.
But they still can't have children?
No. I mean,
not without extraordinary measures?
Not with extra help.
Okay.
They couldn't have children the usual way.
But she might have been a little bit mentally slow, you're saying, when you talked about the IQ, maybe, but not severely.
Maybe. No, not severely.
Not what you would think of as mentally retarded at all.
No.
No. Okay.
And you had asked about doing ultrasounds prenatally. So if you do an ultrasound and you see some thickening of the skin folds in the back of the neck, that would be something that would indicate possible Turner syndrome.
Oh, okay. But you could only know for sure by doing amnio?
Yeah, I mean, there's things that the skin folds by themselves wouldn't necessarily mean Turner. They're just associated with Turner. So that leads you to do chromosomes. Or you could identify a single kidney on prenatal ultrasound, which might make you do chromosomes.
Okay. But there could be no connection between Crystal's drug use during pregnancy if she did?
No.
So there's no connection there?
No.
Good to know. Okay, so let's talk about Ron's arrest history, because he has an extensive history of substance abuse and assault, it turns out.
Yeah, he's a sweetheart.
Yeah.
And he's only 25.
Right, but he married a 17-year-old.
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did. Yeah. So when he was confronted by Geraldo, which was our intro to this program, he said they had never used any drugs, and we know that that was a lie, right?
Well, if you just look at his arrest history, you can find that out.
Right.
So when Haleigh went missing, Ron had been under investigation for drug dealing. Police had videotaped evidence and they were about to arrest him. When Haleigh vanished, police decided to hold off on his arrest because they were afraid he would lawyer up and not cooperate with the investigators.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's a good decision. They thought that he'd be more useful to finding out what had happened to Haleigh if he were a free man.
Well, that was wishful thinking.
As it turns out.
Right. So some highlights of his arrest history. I was able to find a few things. There was possession of controlled substance in 2007 and 2008.
So she disappeared in 2010.
2009. February 10th, 2009 was when they called the police.
Okay.
So
he's got...
So he was like 23, 24.
With his arrests.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he had the drug possession in 2007, 2008, possession of meth in 2008 as a separate charge, possession of cocaine in 2006, and assault charges in 2006 and 2008. And I'm not sure who those were against, although later on Crystal would accuse him of assaulting her during her pregnancy with one of the kids.
Right. And these are just kind of the highlights of his arrest record.
Yeah.
There's more.
I'm sure there's more. Well, and then after Haleigh goes missing, he gets into trouble again, of course.
Yes, he
so
does.
That's a big part of it. He's only 25
Mm-hmm.
when she goes missing. So what about Misty? Her story had a lot of inconsistencies, and she claimed that someone had got into the mobile home, even though the door was locked with a deadbolt that night.
Yeah, so you're not going to just pick a deadbolt's lock.
No.
You'd have to beat the door in.
I would think so.
So.
And you'd have to make a bit of noise.
Right.
And it's not a huge residence here. It's a mobile home.
So it's a mobile home.
It's not even a double wide. It's a small place.
Yeah.
So also, the floors in the mobile home were notoriously squeaky. A minister who had previously lived in that home gave interviews, and he talked about how he'd complained to the landlord because the floors were so damn noisy. He said that you'd have to be like passed out not to hear that. You'd have to be on drugs or drunk or something. Very loud floors, so you could hear people walking around, enough so that it would probably wake you up.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that struck me as strange. The beds were only 4 feet apart.
Yeah, they're in the same room.
So if you've got proximity, plus you've got squeaky floors, you'd think you'd wake up when somebody's abducting your daughter or the child you're caring for.
Right, right.
Now, so that would lead me to say, well, maybe she was passed out. Maybe she was high on drugs or something.
Which wouldn't be a stretch at all.
Although she managed to do the 911 call.
Yeah, at 3 a.m.
Yeah, but that's one of the things that would come to my mind, knowing the history of this family.
That if someone did come in, she was on drugs and asleep.
She might not have heard anything.
But what about the little boy? Although little kids can sleep pretty heavy.
Yeah, they can sleep through earthquakes.
That's true. Well, Misty said that she got up to use the bathroom when she noticed the kitchen light was on. So the layout of the home just doesn't match the story that she gave police. The kitchen light was on. She went that way and saw the open door. Then she said she went and saw that Haleigh was gone. The big problem here is that there was a bathroom in the bedroom where they were sleeping. That was like the master bedroom area. So there was no reason to leave the bedroom to go to the bathroom.
No. So that sounds like it's a story made to tell the cops how she discovered the missing child.
Exactly, yeah. Right.
Then another inconsistency is that Misty said when she put Haleigh to bed, Haleigh was wearing a pink shirt. But the pink shirt ends up being found by police in the washing machine.
Now this was really odd. There's no explaining this away.
Yeah, why would a kidnapper remove her shirt and put it in the washing machine?
Well, he wouldn't. It makes no sense.
None whatsoever.
So the police had updated the Amber Alert to indicate that Haleigh was not wearing the pink shirt as they'd said she was. Interestingly enough, Misty said in follow-up interviews that the pink shirt was the last shirt she'd seen Haleigh wearing. So she's not arguing there that she'd said the wrong shirt, which would have made more sense. Or she was wearing a similar shirt.
Yeah.
But
it's that pink one.
But she said that's the last one she was wearing. So there's another thing that just makes no sense.
None.
I mean, how could that even be?
Got me.
Right.
Right?
And she made a point in saying that she had been doing laundry earlier. Now, it was pointed out as an odd thing that Misty told the 911 dispatcher that she was doing laundry before bed. Is that really something you're going to think about when you're calling for help for a missing child?
Probably not.
I mean, it seems weird. But she did seem to feel the need to say that. Investigators claim that there was physical evidence in the home that contradicts Misty's version of what happened. Now, what that evidence is, though, has not been revealed to the public, so that's just something we can wonder about. We have no idea.
It's just hypothetical.
Well, it's real. They're saying it's real, but what it might be is hypothetical.
Right.
Right.
That's what I meant to say.
I understand.
So on the evening of February 10th, this is later in the day of the disappearance.
Exactly, yep.
Families of Crystal Sheffield, that's the mother, the biologic mother, and Ronald Cummings held a vigil at a nearby church. Then the next day the search continued. Divers searched the St. John River after canines alerted to her scent nearby. But they found nothing, and they also made copies that were censored of the 911 calls. They released them to the media.
Yeah, and this is when the public started speculating right away.
Yeah.
Now, anytime you listen to a 911 call, I feel like you can be critical, Either they're reacting too much or they're reacting not enough. You really can't win.
There's so many things you can read into a 911 call.
Of course. If you're suspicious, you're going to find something.
Yeah.
So, of course, people were scrutinizing the hell out of this.
Weren't they?
Yes. So the afternoon of the 11th, officials declared that the case was an abduction, as there was no evidence that Haleigh had wandered off. Interviews of family members continued, and police did describe the family as cooperative at this point. They identified 44 sex offenders within 5 miles of Haleigh's home, and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement and the FBI checked on their whereabouts at the time of Haleigh's disappearance. They also went around the neighborhood and spoke to all the neighbors, and they searched any homes that were uninhabited.
Now, 44 sex offenders within 5 miles. To me, that sounds like a lot of sex offenders.
It does, but I think there are just more out there than we think about, because in many of these cases we've read about, there are a lot of sex offenders around.
There are, but 44 sounds like an awful lot.
It sure does. And I mean, it's not like a densely populated area either.
No, it's rural north central Florida.
Uh-huh, yep. So this is a good idea to check them out.
Yeah, but I guess they were all cleared.
Yes.
Or at least none of them.
They were all accounted for.
Were arrested. Now, Ronald Cummings' mother, whose name was Teresa Neves, she was noted to have suspicious behavior also following her granddaughter's disappearance. And this is the interesting thing to me. She arrived at the mobile home just minutes after the police did, in the early morning of February 10th. She said that Ron had called her essentially 2 or 3 minutes prior to her arrival, while Misty was still on the phone with 911. She said she lived 10 to 15 miles away, so she apparently drove 180 miles an hour to get those 10 miles in 3 minutes.
This is one thing that I just can't get past. This and the pink shirt are probably the 2 biggest red flags to me.
Yeah, so there's something screwy.
Something's going on with that mother. She also arrived with a framed 8x10 photo of Haleigh. So was she tipped off that Haleigh was missing before the 911 call? Some have speculated, because some have said that she even lived further away than she claimed that she did. She was evicted from a home with her boyfriend in Lady Lake, Florida, approximately 1 year after Haleigh disappeared. So if it's true that she was living in Lady Lake back when Haleigh disappeared, it should have taken her over an hour to arrive from her home on the night of the disappearance.
Yeah, because that's like 50 miles away.
Yeah, I think
Lady
more than
Lake.
that.
She could not possibly have gotten there.
No. And we haven't been able to verify which place she was at, but either way, she shouldn't have been able to get there that quickly. And it just shows a lot of forethought to me to grab an 8x10.
Doesn't it?
On your way out in the middle of the night.
Uh-huh.
Now, what and when did Teresa know about Haleigh's disappearance? Events suggest that she was aware for some time that Haleigh was gone, and that she seemed to have planned her arrival on the scene. I just don't believe anything she said.
No, and it sure seems like she came prepared.
Doesn't it? Yes.
So Teresa was steadfast in her support of Misty. She told reporters that the children loved her, and they seemed very happy with her. She said that Misty took better care of the children than anyone else. Well, there's a good slap at Mom, huh?
Yeah, that's not saying much for the people who were taking care of this girl.
It sure isn't.
No. But she gave these ringing endorsements of Misty, despite it being common knowledge that Misty was a drug user. Ron and Misty had only been dating for a couple of months, and Teresa didn't know her very well. But she would become indignant whenever anyone pointed out Misty's flaws or any inconsistencies in Misty's story. Her constant defense of Misty was especially odd, since police openly said that Misty was the key to finding Haleigh. So, if your child says that your grandchild's missing, and they have been living with someone for a couple months, and that's the person that was with the child, wouldn't you be suspicious of that person?
Well, my radar's up for that person, don't you think?
Absolutely.
And how well do you know this person in 2 months?
You can't.
And I would wager that Mom or Grandma wasn't a frequent visitor to the house.
That I don't know, but you might be right.
Oh, just from what we've read about the lifestyle, or lifestyles.
Yeah.
I don't think they were this loving, get-together family.
No, it was kind of a rough lifestyle going on there.
Yeah.
Now, Haleigh had vanished on a Monday, but it was confirmed from several sources that Misty had spent that weekend before that using drugs with a man by the name of Gregory Page. So this is the guy who went by the nickname White Boy Greg.
Yeah, he was biracial.
Yeah. So Ronald was furious with Misty that she'd spent this weekend doing drugs and having sex with white boy Greg, right? Which I could see.
Maybe that would upset me.
So Misty didn't want to babysit Haleigh that night, and also Teresa didn't want to babysit the kids. Teresa had actually offered to pay Misty to watch the children that night. So nobody wants to stay with the kids. Ron has to go to work. So Misty did end up doing it, but she would claim that she declined being paid. She just did it.
How nice of her.
But Ronald, he was angry with her before he left for work. They'd been fighting. And he said he made several attempts to call Misty that evening from his job, and she didn't answer.
Right.
And these attempts have been proven.
Yeah.
Right.
So we have him trying to call her with no answer, and she tried to call him when she allegedly found the baby missing.
Well, and the story she would tell police is that when he left for work, they'd been fighting, and she turned her phone off because she didn't want to talk to him for a while.
Right.
Now, Ronald called Misty's brother, Tommy Croslin, and asked him to go to the mobile home and check on them when she didn't answer the phone. So Tommy claimed that he did go there that evening, and he knocked on the door. No one answered, and he left. And he said that was around 10 o'clock at night. So according to Teresa, she tried to call Misty that evening as well and didn't get an answer. So it seems that Teresa maybe knew that there were problems with Misty watching the children that night, if nothing else. Misty was fighting with Ron and didn't want to be home with Haleigh and Junior, so it seems like we're setting up a disaster here, leaving a 17-year-old with a drug problem in charge of 2 little kids.
Doesn't sound ideal, does it?
No, it sounds horrible. Plus, she's angry at their father. It's terrible.
They'd had a fight.
Breaks my heart to think of these kids. You just want to go take the kids. You want to go back in time, take the kids, and take care of them. Because how hard would it be to give them a nice meal and tuck them into bed? These are simple things to do.
Well, yeah, they are simple for people that have some good forms of parenting.
Right. Well, I mean, just common goodness. Let's be real.
Yeah, well, I think we're lacking that.
So if Teresa knew that Misty had cheated on Ron and that she didn't want to watch the children, why was she going so far to defend Misty after Haleigh went missing? Police and the media began to view Teresa more as someone who's trying to obstruct this investigation than as the victim that she initially seemed to be when she came on the scene.
Yeah, so we're getting a few days into this disappearance. By day 4, the search for Haleigh's continuing. There's now like 250 volunteers and law enforcement people from 17 agencies. Marie Griffiths, who's Haleigh's maternal grandmother,
Crystal Sheffield's mom,
she issued a public apology to Misty and Ron for raising suspicions with the media concerning their possible involvement in Haleigh's disappearance. So what's that? I guess she was critical of them?
Yeah.
And then ended up apologizing.
Yeah, I'm not sure what all that was
what's
about.
Going on.
Right.
Maybe Ron threatened her.
I don't know.
So the next day, February 15th, the police announced that they were ending ground searches unless some new information pointed in that direction. And the command post was moved from Satsuma, where the trailer was, to Palatka, to the Putnam County Emergency Operations Center in Palatka.
Now, just as an aside, it was Junior's birthday that day.
Right.
So they had a cake and things for him.
So they try to have some normalcy.
He wanted to have like a piece of cake set aside for his sissy, which is what he called Haleigh.
Aw.
So they brought that up, and that was like a tearjerker, but also it seemed like they were kind of trying to elicit emotion, exploiting it a bit.
Yes.
And there's a lot of exploitation in this that makes you kind of, your stomach turn.
There is.
Yeah.
So then a few days later, February 18th, investigators confirmed that they had received a tip that Misty was not at the home when Haleigh was supposedly sleeping. Well, we knew that she didn't want to watch the kids.
So it wouldn't be surprising.
If that's the case.
Right. If that's the case, sure.
However, both Ron and Misty told the media that they had both passed polygraph exams. The next day, police arrested a sexual predator who was living near Haleigh's home and who violated his curfew in the days after she was reported missing. But his GPS tracking device showed that he was not in the area of her home, and he was released.
Yeah. So there have been a few of these false leads where they've looked into it, which is their job. They need to do that.
That's right.
But they've turned out to be nothing. Now, deputies confirmed later that month that Junior had talked about a man in black who'd entered the home and took his sister. He also said that he remembered the couch bouncing sometime that night. Now, Teresa admitted that he may have just been repeating something that he'd overheard, and authorities never made a comment on the boy's statements.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much credence I'd give a 4-year-old eyewitness.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it?
You know, and it's nighttime. He'd been asleep.
Right.
So, I don't know. Certainly it's something to look into.
Well, and he'd be so easily suggestible, too.
Yeah.
Right. Although a lot of people have really wondered about the bouncing couch. Could it have been someone trying to resuscitate Haleigh? Could it have been Misty and white boy Greg getting it on the couch?
Well, the cynic would say that.
Either one.
Well, no, you're not going to do CPR on a couch. You're going to put them on the floor.
Okay, even if you're Misty Croslin?
Yeah, because she's a genius and she's thinking that I need to be able to get good cardiac pressure.
Okay.
So I need a firm surface.
Okay, well, you give her much more credit
She took
than...
that in high school.
I'm glad you know these things about her. Well, anyway, there's some speculation about why he would have said the couch was bouncing. Who knows?
Yeah.
But there's certainly a lot of ideas we could get from that. Now, a cadaver dog alerted on a dumpster near the family home, and they did a search of that area, but nothing was found. Investigators confirmed that they'd taken DNA samples from Misty Croslin, Ronald Cummings, and Crystal Sheffield. Haleigh's case was featured on America's Most Wanted on February 28th, and there was a reward of $35,000 offered for the return of Haleigh, and that money was raised with the help of the Jacksonville-based group Justice Coalition. Now, the case took a boggling turn in March when Ronald Cummings proposed to Misty Croslin. So here's the woman who police believe knew what happened to his daughter. He also knew that she'd been on a drug binge with another guy the weekend before, and they'd been fighting the night that Haleigh disappeared. And we even overhear Ron calling Misty his dumb bitch girlfriend on the 911 call. But now they're going to enter marital bliss.
They are. Now, I think, and you've proven me wrong on this, but I think he married her because he thought that they wouldn't squeal on each other because they're husband and wife.
I don't think I've proven you wrong. I just think they were wrong because if you look into the laws of the land down there.
Okay, because it's not the law.
No, but it's kind of common. People commonly think
that
if you're married, you don't have to testify against your spouse.
But you can.
But in their area, you could.
Okay.
But I wouldn't put it past them to not research it before going ahead and getting married.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's what I would think.
Yeah.
That their way of thinking is if we get married, we'll be safer.
I would totally believe that. Yeah, I don't think we could disprove that at all.
So they got married a little over a month after Haleigh vanished. It's kind of quick anyway.
Well, very quick. They'd only been together a few months.
So they've been together, by this time, 3 whole months. They married in the yard of a friend's trailer home. Now, the local church where vigils had been held for Haleigh would not allow the wedding to be held at the church because they disapproved of the marriage. Whoa.
Well, they didn't think it was appropriate.
Yeah, well, one thing was Misty was only 17, so she obviously needed to get parental consent to be married. And there's this whole murder, abduction, disappearance case going on.
Well, there is that.
Minor details. That's true love. Let's get married.
Yeah. A lot of people were suspicious. It was distasteful. It just didn't seem right. Their whole reaction to it was just so strange. I mean, family was there supporting them at the wedding. And Misty would say that the wedding is what Haleigh would have wanted. So why not wait till Haleigh's back and let her be the bridesmaid if that's what she wanted?
Right. And then the next day, they take this trip. So,
this was even worse.
So that just compounds things in my thinking.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they traveled to New York to appear on the Today Show. Now, in the interview, Ron said it was no one's business what he did in his personal life when he was asked about the wedding. Now, his complaint, though, it seemed very odd, considering that he allowed cameras at the wedding, and he took the paid trip by the Today Show. Now, in fact, the trip seemed like a little vacation for them, and people were really turned off when there were photos taken of Ron, Misty, and Teresa out on the town, smiling, making faces, out to dinner.
It's just crazy stuff.
It's really gross.
So they even got Grandma, Ron's mom, got to go on the trip.
Yeah, she seemed involved in things a little more than would be normal. Something's up with her.
So why did she go?
I guess they needed a witness. I don't know.
Is that the deal?
I don't think they interviewed her.
Yeah, I mean, the TV show, Today Show with Meredith, just had the 2 of them.
Right,
Ron and Misty.
That's true.
So the interviewer, as I said, was Meredith Vieira, and she seemed to be going very easy on Misty and Ron.
She sure did. I mean, I can see you have to use kid gloves here, but she didn't ask any tough questions.
No, it was a puff piece.
It was.
So police told the media that the marriage was complicating their investigation.
So why would you want to complicate the investigation if you want to find your child?
Well, they weren't thinking of that.
It doesn't seem like they were thinking much about Haleigh at all.
No. And then after they returned to Florida, Ron went to Tampa to get a tattoo. Now, those who had spent time with him in Tampa said he rarely spoke about Haleigh. He did speak, however, about the money he was making from his daughter's case. Oh, that's a sweet thing to talk
Isn't that
about.
gross? He didn't return to his job. Even though they gave him a generous amount of time off and they were going to take him back, he never went back. So I don't know, did he think this was his new career?
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
His new career is the grieving father.
Yeah.
And
So
he's going to make money off of it.
well, it seems like he was. They said he would go to local restaurants and expect to eat for free because he was the grieving father. And eventually, the bridge company fired him. They gave him every opportunity.
Yeah, but he just didn't even go back.
No.
He didn't even make an attempt.
No, I don't think so.
Know, go back for a couple of days and say, I can't do this, something like that.
No.
He just blew him off.
Yeah. Well, he had time to go get a tattoo in Tampa, so you figure it out.
So on March 17th, Haleigh's mother, Crystal Sheffield, announced the opening of the Haleigh Bug headquarters. Now, this is a building where Crystal could stay near the location where Haleigh had vanished and help participate in search efforts. Donations were collected at the building, and people were invited to come in with any tips on Haleigh's whereabouts. So here's another cynical viewpoint. It's another way to scam some money off of people.
Oh, I agree with you, though. Yeah, I think it's all in very poor taste. I understand they didn't have a lot of money, but I think they really took advantage of this.
It seems they did.
Yeah. Now, by the end of March, Ron Cummings, Crystal Sheffield, and Misty Croslin each had an attorney. Crystal had a car accident that she blamed on a seizure, and then soon after that, the Haleigh Bug headquarters was closed. So there was something suspicious going on there, and I couldn't find any details.
Couldn't get the details.
But it did seem to kind of happen in a strange, abrupt way.
Yes, it certainly did.
Yeah.
Now, that May, the Cummings family rejected help and support that was offered to them by the grandparents of Caylee Anthony. Now, her remains had been found in December 2008.
Yeah, so just a couple months before Haleigh disappeared.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, she was February.
Yeah.
So a couple months.
Very close together.
But the Cummings family claimed that the Anthony family had their own agenda, and the Anthony case was in no way similar to Haleigh's case.
Yeah, so I don't know about that. I mean, certainly, we know that the Anthony family had their own dysfunction. So I don't think that...
yeah, we've talked about that.
Yes. So I don't think that there's any benefit to be had from the Anthony family.
No.
Although, if Cindy and George went there to try and comfort them, they may have had good intentions, but I don't see any benefit from that. Now, there was that private investigator on the case named Cobra Staubs. Was it Staubs?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was originally hired by Crystal Sheffield, and then Crystal fired him, and he was signed on by Crystal's grandfather. And I think that was just an excuse so he could stay in the area. He was kind of a clinger-on.
He was a weird guy.
Yeah. Now, he said that he asked Ron Cummings why he had married Misty, and that Ron had told him it was to, in quotes, to keep his enemies close.
Right. What's the actual quote? Is keep your friends close and your enemies closer?
Right.
So, it's keeping an eye on things.
So that's what he said.
Allegedly.
Right. So a friend of Misty's, Christina Prevette, who went by the nickname Nene, was arrested on drug charges, and she was interrogated about Haleigh's disappearance. Then she wrote a letter to her boyfriend from behind bars, which I'm going to read for you now. It's just a short letter, but I think it's significant. Give you a whole feeling of what's going on with these people. So it starts, I got interrogated by the detectives in Haleigh's case. You're not going to believe what they told me. Your friend Joe told police I was with Misty, White Boy Greg, Haleigh, and Junior the night of Haleigh's disappearance. You know I was at your house. He said we were at a party at Chad's house and Haleigh got a hold of some OxyContin and died. We freaked out, and Greg put her in a black bag in my car, and we took her to the pond by the Mondex. The detectives got my car from the junkyard yesterday to do some CSI DNA shit. When you see your friend, you need to ask him why he would make up some bullshit like that and put me in the middle of a homicide investigation. I'm gonna slap that motherfucker in the face if I ever see him. You know I was with you that night. Well, just to let you know what's going on. Love always, Nene.
Well, let's try to establish an alibi here.
Yeah.
Right? You know I was with you.
Right. If she was involved.
If she was involved.
Right. But I feel like the friend who told the story was just one of these people trying to get out of trouble by using this case as some kind of leverage with the cops.
That could be.
Now, Greg Page, White Boy Greg, was interrogated by the police and took a polygraph, and it was reported that he passed the polygraph. He seemed genuine. But the pond was drained and searched, and nothing was discovered in or at the pond, according to Major Gary Bowling of the Putnam County Sheriff's Office. So, I just feel like this gives us some idea of what the investigators were dealing with. Many of Misty and Ron's acquaintances and friends were arrested on drug charges, and they were giving these statements about what had happened to Haleigh in efforts to get themselves out of trouble. Now, this also gives us a good idea of the kind of people Haleigh was living among.
And it's not a favorable opinion.
No.
So in August of 2009, Misty Croslin called her brother Tommy Croslin, and her father Hank, also Croslin, told him she didn't want to live with Ronald Cummings anymore. So they'd been married, what, March to August, 5 months.
Yeah.
So long-term happiness.
Yeah, sure.
So Hank and Tom went to where Misty and Ron were living, and a physical fight happened. Well, yeah, I mean, Ron seems like a pretty volatile guy.
Yeah.
The Croslins claimed that when they arrived, Ron was acting crazy, and he attempted to fight them. And when Tom attempted to leave, Ron jumped into his vehicle, started hitting him. Police got called, Ron gets arrested, gets released, and guess who bailed him out?
Misty.
You got it.
When she said she didn't want to live with him.
I know.
Right.
So, and after that incident, Tommy called police claiming he'd found a decapitated rat in his mailbox. It's like a dead fish in the mailbox, or a horse's head in the bed or something.
Sure.
Like
Seems like it's a similar threat, yeah.
And a neighbor said to the police that she had seen Ronald Cummings putting an object into Tommy Croslin's mailbox. Seems like Haleigh is not the focus of Ronald Cummings. Why is that?
Right. Why is that?
His daughter's still missing.
Right, but he's focusing on all this other stuff. Or is it related? We don't know. So let's take a minute here to talk about our sponsor, Hunt a Killer. Now, everyone thinks that they'd be a good detective, but how do you really know? Check out Hunt a Killer. It's the first ever interactive investigation delivered straight to your door every month. It's like real-life Silence of the Lambs, and you get to be Clarice. Log in to huntakiller.com and apply for membership. They only accept 200 members a day. Once you're accepted, you'll receive an invitation with a private link to complete your registration. Now, your first episode will ship that first day with no shipping charges. You'll receive clues, correspondence, and physical items that put you into the mind of a serial killer. It's your job to decipher and investigate to unravel the case.
Warning. Do not open these packages when you're alone at night.
Hunt a Killer has been featured in BuzzFeed, Fast Company, and the Washington Post. Hell, the editors of Bustle are writing monthly about their journey. Hunt a Killer is building an inside community of hunters, where members communicate in a private Facebook group. Like tens of thousands of hunters, I'm a member. If investigating isn't your thing, you probably know a crime geek who would love this as a gift. Now, best of all, to help support our show, Hunt a Killer is offering a 10% discount for our listeners. Just go to www.huntakiller.com and use the code BREWERY, BREWERY, to get 10% off. But heed Dick's warning.
Yeah, I hope that wasn't too over the top.
No, I think we liked it.
Okay.
We'll find out. So obviously this rat in the mailbox was some kind of a threat. But was it related to Haleigh? That's the big question.
Well, there's more twists and turns to come in this case.
Well, yeah.
So I'm thinking that it could be a threat.
Well, remember, Ronald had tried to call Misty on the night Haleigh went missing, and Misty didn't answer her phone. Ronald had then called Tommy and sent him to the mobile home to check on her. Tommy went there and knocked on the door. He said he got no answer and left. But is that what really happened? Some have speculated that maybe Tommy had found out that Haleigh had been killed that night. Did Ronald decapitate the rat and put it in Tommy's mailbox to intimidate him and keep him from going forward with information about what had happened to Haleigh? If so, this would implicate Misty and Ronald in what had happened to Haleigh.
Now, Texas EquiSearch came to Satsuma to help in the search for Haleigh. Now, they've been involved in some other cases we've talked about.
Oh, yeah.
They're
Many of them.
Pretty famous. So the founder of EquiSearch is Tim Miller, his daughter was a murder victim who had been missing.
Yeah, so he's personally dealt with this kind of thing, and he wasn't really getting the right vibe from these people.
No, he had a conversation with Ron that was very disturbing. Tim Miller recounted this conversation, adding that Junior, Haleigh's little brother,
4 years old,
was in the room and witnessed the conversation between Miller and Cummings. Cummings said to Tim Miller that if he found out that Misty was responsible for Haleigh's disappearance, he would blow her teeth out the back of her head. Then Ron got down on the floor and put the gun into his mouth. He said that he would kill himself and take a few others with him.
Well, this makes me cringe.
Doesn't it? And this is in front of his 4-year-old son.
Yeah. And this is what he does with a stranger in the house. What does he do when he's alone with the kid?
Huh.
It's just scary.
So Tim Miller told police about this conversation.
Well, I'm glad he did.
And a child abuse investigation was done. They found that Ron kept his gun and bullets in an unlocked closet. So they confiscated that gun, as well as they had already confiscated several guns from the mobile home the night Haleigh went missing.
Yeah, so it seems like he had a fascination with guns. And he was a more disturbed person than the police had initially thought. The pressure and the dysfunction was only getting worse throughout the family, and not surprisingly, the marriage of Ron and Misty fell apart. Nobody was shocked.
No.
No.
Not a surprise.
No.
Now, Ron Cummings spoke with Nancy Grace about his decision to divorce Misty. Nancy asked him if he was divorcing Misty because she was lying about the night Haleigh disappeared, but he denied that.
Yeah, Nancy seemed kind of convinced that that was it, or she wanted that to be it.
Yeah, well, I think Nancy gets to her ideas that she wants to pursue, and she's single-minded in the pursuit of those.
Yeah, a little bit, yep.
But Ron said the divorce was due to pressure from the media and family problems. And that would seem reasonable. There's still intense scrutiny of this case.
Sure, but why did they get married in the first place?
Well,
that's the stupid thing.
Yeah, I know, but they did.
Yeah.
So why not try to work on it?
Well, really. Do you know who you're talking about here?
I know.
Well, Misty went on the CBS Early Show and claimed that Ron wanted a divorce because there was too much stress on them. She denied that the breakup had anything to do with her being a suspect in Haleigh's disappearance. Misty said that she believed Haleigh was taken by someone on the other side of the family. So I think she's referring there to Crystal's family.
Right.
Right. Now, there's no indication that that's true at all.
None whatsoever.
No.
Now, in late September, so we are now 7 months.
7 months, yep.
After the disappearance, the Putnam County Sheriff's Office revealed that Ron and other relatives couldn't reach Misty on that night that she was taking care of Haleigh and Junior. And he had made at least 20 attempts to reach her by phone. So then the other story is he calls his future brother-in-law, Tommy. He goes to check on her. No lights were on inside. He banged on the door, but no one answered. So where was everybody, if Tommy Croslin's to be believed?
Well, that kind of makes me think about the theory where she went out to a party.
Yes.
But we're going to go over theories at the end of the show.
We'll save them.
So let's just finish the story.
Okay.
Then we can get into what theories and what we think of them. So after Misty's appearance on the CBS Early Show, her attorney quit. And he had stated that he had advised her not to appear on the show, and she hadn't listened to him. Now, the divorce between Ron and Misty was finalized on October 15th, 2009, so that's a 7-month marriage. Now, hope of solving Haleigh's case increased after the divorce, though, because many people were hopeful that Misty and Ron would turn on each other, and the truth would be revealed about what happened that night.
Now, in the meantime, a little 7-year-old girl named Summer Thompson went missing in Orange Park, Florida, which isn't too far away from the Cummings place.
Right.
She went missing that October, and her body was found in a landfill 2 days later. Public speculated that there was a connection between Summer and Haleigh's cases, but police found no connections.
No. So in November, Tommy Croslin and Hank Croslin were arrested on separate drug charges. Tommy was pulled over with a variety of narcotics in his car, and Hank was alleged to have been doctor shopping to fraudulently obtain prescription drugs.
Well, that's a good way to do it.
What do you mean?
Just go around doctor to doctor.
Yeah, but I think he was giving out fake names.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, well, they've really cracked down on that sort of thing now, so it's very difficult to do that.
Which is probably a good thing.
Isn't it? Because, doctors want to do what's helpful to their patients.
Of course.
So someone with severe back pain that's on chronic opioids or something, they'll get the prescription.
But there's just so much of this prescription drug abuse. And this is just such a good example of it. It's horrible. It's so prevalent in the whole community here, the whole family.
Right.
It makes me kind of sad for them.
And then it gets revealed to the public that Misty had actually failed her polygraph. Some of the questions got released to the public.
Right, yeah.
So one of these was, have you intentionally withheld any information about Haleigh's disappearance? Misty answered no, but that answer showed a deception rate of about 99%. So that's pretty much certain.
That's not good, is it? That doesn't look like she was being truthful. Then she was asked if she knew where Haleigh was, and she said no again, and this time there was a 95% deception rate.
These are pretty tough.
Looks like she's lying.
Yeah, but they couldn't crack her open.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, she does seem like she's lying, but I just find it hard to believe that she's strong enough to not break with these detectives, right? I mean, at this point, she has an attorney, though, so that helps. But still, I'm surprised that if she knew something, she didn't give in and say something.
Right.
That shows more self-control than I would expect her to have. Now, she'd also agreed to be hypnotized to help her remember the details from the night Haleigh went missing. The forensic hypnotist who examined her said he believed that she was fighting the process. So during the examination, Misty repeated the events that led up to the disappearance of Haleigh in the middle of the night while Misty was caring for her. Investigators said that there were a few facts that differed from previous versions. Now, throughout it all, the hypnotist believed that she likely knew more than she was saying. She claimed she was there for a voluntary interview, and yet she exhibited a lot of signs, both verbally and non-verbally, that this wasn't voluntary. It was almost as if she wanted to appear to cooperate while consciously or subconsciously thwarting him, he said.
Yeah, now I've heard her on some interviews.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering, and I'm not trying to be malicious. I'm just wondering if she's smart enough to do that.
I know, that's what I wonder. She does seem to be deceptive, but then I wonder if she doesn't seem smart enough to get away with it. Although she spent a life of manipulating and, doing things like that, so she might be fairly good at lying.
She could be. So Misty said she wanted to clear her name in Haleigh's disappearance. But experts who had given her a series of 3 tests said deceptive answers did even more damage. I didn't have nothing to do with her, she said. I love that little girl more than anything. I would never hurt her. If I knew who hurt her, I'd tell. So these appeared to be lies. This was on a voice analysis stress test and during a lie detector test. Then she pointed fingers even at her own family. I keep hearing a lot about my brother, she said. I have no idea if he'd done something to her. I don't know if he took her.
So that's strange.
So she's busy throwing everybody under the bus.
I know. The analyst giving the test called her out on her inconsistent stories. I can see it, the analyst said. There's things going on that you know that you're not telling anybody. Tim Miller from Texas EquiSearch said Misty reached out to him for help to find Haleigh and clear her name. So he paid for the experts to conduct the test, which Miller said she failed miserably, answering most honestly when asked if she knew who took Haleigh. There were 2 or more people involved, Miller thought, so when Haleigh was taken out of the house, Misty didn't know who it was taking her to her final destination. So that's why that wouldn't seem like she was completely lying when she said she didn't know.
True.
Yeah.
And that's a scenario that I can believe.
Sure.
But again, like you said, we're going to go through the different hypotheses.
We are. Yep. So Misty told Tim Miller that she expected tough times ahead. She said, "I've lived in cars. I've had drug addicts as parents. My life has been bad my whole life, and it's just not going to get better, it looks like."
It sure does. She was right. January of 2010, Misty was arrested, along with Ronald Cummings and Tommy Croslin, back for seconds, on 6 counts of trafficking in prescription medications. So Ron, Misty, Tommy, Misty's friend Donna Brock, Ron's cousin Hope Sykes, were all busted in an undercover drug sting. This was all caught on video. So each of them was facing a minimum of 15 years in prison. They were also caught on video selling $3,900 worth of painkillers to undercover police. That's not looking good for these people.
No, this is big trouble. The Putnam County Sheriff's Office said that the drug bust was a parallel case to Haleigh's disappearance, even though it was a totally separate case. So that was a curious comment. Lieutenant John Greenwood said there was no doubt in his mind that the 2 cases will cross someday. So what do you think he meant by that?
Well, I think he knows more, obviously, than the public.
Uh-huh.
And the one way that the cases could cross is that the little girl Haleigh died of a drug overdose because there were probably drugs all over the place in the mobile home.
Yeah.
But that's a scenario we'll discuss. But remember when we were talking about the door being propped open with the cinder block?
Yeah.
They were cleaning evidence out.
I could see that.
So,
yeah, we're back to
I
theories
think
again.
That's one way 2 cases would cross.
I kind of felt like once they were in prison, too, police thought they were going to get the answers from them, that they'd finally crack.
Yeah, because they're looking at hard time here. You'd think that somebody would give it up.
Yeah, you think someone would tell them what had happened and try and get a less harsh sentence. And it's shocking to me that nobody talked.
Nobody talked.
Yep, so February 2010, like a year after Haleigh went missing, warrants for 2 more charges related to the sale of prescription narcotics were filed against Ron and Misty, so that brought her total charges to 8 and his total charges to 5. The video and audio from Misty and Tommy's jailhouse visits were released to the public. These are painful to listen to. And if you're interested, they're available on YouTube, but it's just exhausting to listen to it. The ignorance is so thick. I mean, it's terrible. But it does give you an idea of who these people are, but wow, it's just a mess.
Okay. So Hope Sykes, one of the defendants, pled guilty. She gets sentenced to 15 years, and she was a small player. Donna Brock, who'd been an EquiSearch member, but she got fired for becoming too close to Misty and doing drugs with Misty, was also sentenced to 15 years. Now, Donna had given Misty 150 pills to sell. So these 2 that are seemingly fairly minor players have already been sentenced to 15 years.
Donna and Misty had been involved in an incident together before Donna had been fired. Then someone claimed that the 2 had waved a gun at him when he passed them on a 2-way road. So Donna denied possessing a gun, but she did admit to smoking pot with Misty. And she described herself as a mother figure to Misty, but EquiSearch fired her.
I'm a mother figure, and I smoke weed with my buddy.
We've heard worse.
That's motherly.
Yeah. Now, did the police give Donna and Hope such long sentences to send a message to Ron, Misty, and Tommy to get them to talk about Haleigh? This has definitely been brought up. When Misty and Tommy witnessed the sentencing of Donna and Hope, they did come up with an alternate story of what happened to Haleigh. So they might have felt some pressure there.
Yeah, but they're still going out on a limb. This is another far-fetched story, I think.
Yeah, it's a story.
It is a story. So they claim that their cousin, Joe Overstreet, had taken Haleigh. Joe had been visiting from the Nashville area and staying with the brother Timmy and his wife Chelsea at the time of Haleigh's disappearance.
Yeah, so Tommy and Misty's brother Timmy.
Right.
Right.
So investigators impounded a van that belonged to Chelsea Croslin, kept it for a month before returning it. Chelsea claimed that there was a scratch on the van before they took it, and she didn't know how it got there. She speculated that it may have been used to abduct Haleigh without her knowing. She didn't mention Joe's name, but hinted about a family member taking the van while they were sleeping.
So she's just kind of throwing this out there with no reason.
None at all.
Speculating completely. Now, Misty's family had been suspicious of Joe right after Haleigh had gone missing. There were rumors that he was a sexual predator. Misty now claimed that he had molested her when she was younger and when she was living in Tennessee, but records show that Joe is not a registered sex offender, and he has no record of arrests for sex-related crimes. This was curious because there's footage of Misty hanging up Haleigh's missing posters right beside Joe. So if the family had suspected him of being a pedophile, would they have allowed him to stay with them? Timmy and Chelsea had children in the house, too.
Yeah. So, and this is a cousin in the family.
Yeah.
So if they know he's a pedophile, you're not going to let him stay in your
Even
house
if
with
they're
your kids.
suspicious.
Right.
And wouldn't Misty say, he molested me when I was younger?
Yeah.
So who knows, though?
Just more smoke being blown. So law enforcement had gone to Tennessee to interview Joe Overstreet back in February of 2009, the month that Haleigh went missing.
Yeah.
And they made no connection between him and Haleigh's disappearance.
No, but now they kind of have to look at it again.
Yeah. So the attorney for Tommy Croslin told the media that his client told him that Joe Overstreet killed Haleigh Cummings in a Satsuma mobile home in February 2009 because he couldn't find the machine gun he came looking for.
He took the body down to the dock, and then he came back without the body. So there you have it, Attorney James Werder said. At the dock that night, Joe Overstreet put Haleigh in the St. Johns River. Now, Werder's statements corroborated that Misty Cummings' attorney Robert Fields had said. He said that Misty told investigators that her cousin, Joe Overstreet, put Haleigh in a black bag and took her away. Now, he said Haleigh was a substitute for the gun. What kind of sense does that even make? None.
None whatsoever.
Werder said that Tommy rode in the van to a dock with Joe Overstreet as Haleigh's lifeless body lay in the back seat. Haleigh was quiet, limp, and not moving like she was sleeping, Werder said. He added that Joe Overstreet threatened to kill Tommy, which is why Tommy went along with the plan. Tommy stayed in the vehicle in the passenger seat. He didn't drive. He didn't help in any sort of fashion, Werder said. Joe was ordering him around. Come on, do this, do that. So he's trying to put Tommy in the best light he can, I guess.
Well, that's his job.
Yeah.
He's his lawyer.
Right. But Werder said that Putnam County investigators threatened Tommy with accessory to murder charges, which is why he would no longer allow Tommy to tell his side of the story. So the attorney said he wanted complete immunity for Tommy, which good try, I guess.
Yeah, the lawyer said, my advice to him is that he does not talk because they keep threatening him with felony murder charges, which are unfounded and unwarranted. So how can I let him talk in that situation? How can I let him say he even held a door open for Joe as he carried out the body? That would make him, technically speaking, an accessory after the fact. I can't let him talk with even that stupid little threat.
Yeah, so they're kind of stuck there.
They are.
So by pointing the finger at Joe Overstreet, Misty and Tommy were placing themselves at the scene of Haleigh's murder. They claimed that Joe killed Haleigh in the trailer and threatened them if they didn't cooperate with the cover-up. Now, the story was that Joe had gone in looking for this machine gun. He couldn't find it, and he went into some kind of a rage. Misty said that she was hiding under the covers with the 3-year-old Junior as Joe stormed through the trailer in a rage, killing Haleigh and forcing Tommy to go with him to hide her body. Tommy and Misty's statements were not likely to hold up in court. They'd waited over a year before they said anything, first of all, and then Joe had returned to Tennessee right after Haleigh went missing. So if they were afraid of Joe, he's over 600 miles away. They could have said something at any time. I don't see why they'd be afraid of him, do you?
No. He's not in the neighborhood.
No.
Making threats.
No.
He's hundreds of miles away.
Right.
Doing his own thing. So Tommy said that Joe strangled Haleigh and put her body in the St. Johns River. He even said he was in the car with Joe and Haleigh's body. Now this is way different from his original story, where he stopped by the trailer. It was dark, no one answered the door, and he left. So when they searched the authorities searched the St. Johns River, never finding any sign of Haleigh.
Now, Flora Hollers, the grandmother of Misty, Tommy, and Joe Overstreet, spoke to the media back in 2010 about what she was told had happened to Haleigh. The conversations she had with Misty and Tommy all took place while they were talking with her on the phone from jail. Now, the first thing she was told was that Joe had killed Haleigh. Another story was that Misty had hit Haleigh over the head and killed her, and then Joe got rid of Haleigh's body. Another story was that Misty had been on a 3-day drug binge. She told Ron she didn't want to babysit, and he told her, yes, you're going to babysit. He left the kids there with her while she was still strung out, and she drugged Haleigh to keep her quiet. Now, in that story, Haleigh was accidentally overdosed. Flora told reporters that she believed all four, so that means Joe, Ron, Misty, and Tommy, were involved in covering up the murder of little Haleigh Cummings.
So Ron Cummings and Misty Croslin both entered not guilty pleas to the drug trafficking charges. Ron took a plea deal and was sentenced to 15 years. Misty didn't. She got the harsher sentence of 25 years. The judge apparently had the option of giving her a much lighter sentence as a youthful offender, but opted against it. Her attorney stated that he believes she was given a harsh sentence because she was believed to be involved in Haleigh's disappearance.
Well, I kind of wonder about that, too. Although in the video you can see that she's kind of the one running the whole drug deal. But she was so young, it seems like a pretty harsh sentence for selling drugs when you're 18.
Right.
Don't you think? It's pretty severe.
You could say that.
Yeah. Now, on April 15th, 2010, Sheriff Jeff Hardy announced that Haleigh was most likely dead, and the case was being worked as a homicide. The sheriff's office released a statement saying the ongoing investigation has minimized the likelihood that Haleigh's disappearance is the work of a stranger, and that those who know what happened still won't tell investigators. But while murder was one of the several scenarios detectives investigated, police said that with no body, they didn't have enough evidence to bring charges against anyone suspected of involvement. Now, last year, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children released an updated age progression photo of Haleigh at age 12. You can see the photo on their website, missingkids.com. Now, Haleigh had a dark tan birthmark on her left cheek and a smaller one on the right side of her face. Her left eye was a lazy eye. She had blondish hair with reddish highlights, and she was smaller than your average 5-year-old. She did have the low-set ears and the swollen hands and feet that were probably due to her Turner's syndrome. So if you have any information on Haleigh, you can call 1-800-843-5678, that's 1-800-THE-LOST, or the Putnam County Sheriff's Office, 1-386-329-0801.
Okay, let's talk about some of the theories.
Okay.
We've alluded to these, and we keep promising people we're going to talk about them.
Well, I want to talk about them.
So let's go through some of the theories.
Okay, you start.
Okay. So one that's attractive to me is that Misty tells her friend/dealer he can come over later after Ron's gone and the kids are asleep. But she knows Haleigh would tell on her if she saw anything. So if this was White Boy Greg, this might explain Junior saying that the couch was bouncing if Misty and Greg were being intimate on the couch. And also in this scenario, Misty drugs Haleigh to make her sleep, and Haleigh is accidentally overdosed and dies. So Misty panics and goes into cover-up mode.
Yep,
So
that's a possibility.
I think that's a possibility.
If she wants to continue the drugs and Haleigh's getting in the way,
Yeah.
she gives her some drugs to make her sleep.
She can quiet her down.
No, it wouldn't be like Benadryl or something. She'd be giving her some kind of narcotics probably if she ends up killing her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that kind of makes me think of the blanket that smelled like pee. If she died of an overdose, she may have wet the bed. And that might be why Misty was doing laundry and washed her shirt and her blanket.
Or she had vomited.
Uh-huh, yeah.
So either way, there could have been methods to look at the blanket or look at that spot and see what was there.
Right.
But not after it's gone through the washer.
Well, that would explain why she washed it, right?
Yeah. And by the same token, I don't think it would have been blood, because even if you washed that, you'd still have some traces.
Yeah, probably. Unless you bleached it, which you wouldn't because it was a pink shirt, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blanket.
But she said the blanket smelled like pee, and I almost think there's lots of times there's a little truth in the lie.
Yeah.
So that might be true.
Yep. So I like that theory.
But what about the party theory? That's might be one of my top ones.
Well, that's another good one.
Yeah. So in this one, Misty takes Haleigh with her to a drug party because she wants to party, but she's stuck with the kids. She probably takes both of them. Yeah. And Haleigh gets into some pills and overdoses. People at the party go into cover-up mode and hide Haleigh's body somewhere.
Yeah, I think that's a good possibility.
Yeah, I think those are probably my top two.
Those are definitely the top two.
And of course, we have the option of stranger abduction. Police have ruled this out. There's no sign of a break-in, so I feel pretty strongly that we can rule that out.
Yeah, and the Joe Overstreet coming over for the gun and killing Haleigh because the gun wasn't there just doesn't fly.
No, and the way they said it when they were in trouble.
Yeah.
It's just, it doesn't seem right to me. Now, what about someone from the drug world coming and taking Haleigh over a debt or a disagreement with Ron Cummings?
They don't operate that way.
I don't think so either.
I mean, if this was a drug debt, they'd injure either Misty or Ron.
Right.
Or kill them. I mean, they're the ones that would bear the brunt of the debt. I don't see them kidnapping a young child.
No, I don't either. And then we have that guy, Tim Holmseth, who wrote a book, and he was claiming that the family had Haleigh and was passing her around. What do you think of that theory?
I don't see how that can work.
I don't either.
I mean, again, this is a small town, and if she's being passed around, somebody would notice.
What would be the motivation anyway?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would rule that one out too. How about Misty just losing her temper and killing Haleigh in a rage? I could kind of see that. If she's coming down off drugs and Haleigh's irritating her.
I could see that kind of. I still think if that's the situation, she needs somebody to help her dispose of the body.
Oh yeah, I think someone helped her. Now I keep coming back to Ron's mother, Teresa, though. This is the one thing I can't figure out. How she arrived at the scene so quickly, and how she continued to defend Misty. Now Ron, he was a violent guy. We have no evidence that he ever physically abused the children, though. If he was involved, he would have had to have done something earlier in the day, though, because he went to work.
Right, so he's covered with a good work alibi.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think about that?
Possible.
What do you think about, could Ron be involved?
He could. I'm not liking that as much as the other ones, although there's still that suspicious stuff about how his mother got there so quickly.
Well, maybe the mother was in on it with Misty. I'm thinking maybe Misty or someone from the party, maybe Teresa helped them cover it up.
Yeah. And what about this claim that there was a prior call to 911, about 25 minutes before the call that we heard at the beginning?
Well, 2:13, so a little over an hour before.
Right. Excuse me.
That's okay.
It was 3:30, not 2:30.
Right. So this was over an hour before, but I don't think that's real. According to Tim Holmseth, who many people have discredited, the key to Haleigh's disappearance is the person who made this 12:13 a.m. 911 call. So he wrote, whoever called the police at 2:13 a.m. already knew Haleigh was gone. The caller wanted a deputy to be dispatched to the trailer so it could be found empty, thus proving Misty and Haleigh were not there. Actual radio transcriptions show that a deputy was dispatched and the trailer was found empty.
Yeah, but there's no verification.
No, I've tried really hard to verify this call with no success. The Putnam County Sheriff's Office denies that it happened. The only place I could find a reliable reference to the call was when Lieutenant Greenwood mentioned it when talking about Misty's call, but I think he simply misspoke. There's no evidence of that call from any of Haleigh's family. One neighbor did claim to hear Misty crying outside on her cell phone at 2:30 a.m., but police also deny that that happened, so that may have been a case of someone just misremembering the time. Or maybe not, but I can't find any reliable source to say that that happened.
Yeah.
Now, if she'd called Teresa at 2 or 2:30, that would explain how Teresa got there so quickly. So that I kind of have some...
Yeah, because we still have that mystery of how she could have gotten there so quickly.
Yeah, so maybe she was outside talking to Teresa, not 911.
Right.
We just don't know. but I really feel like Teresa knew something. Now, the police probably know more. They often hold back information on cases, so it wouldn't be unusual for this information to be withheld from the public.
No. I mean, you don't give up all your stuff.
No.
Right?
Right.
Now, Misty's appealed her drug trafficking sentences without success. In a 2000 interview from prison, Misty claimed that a black man who was involved in drug dealing with Ronald Cummings may have been responsible for Haleigh's disappearance. So, yet another story. May have been.
I don't believe that at all.
No.
I mean, she's bringing that up. She's just desperate to get out of prison, it feels like.
It does.
Yeah.
But it hasn't worked yet.
No. So before we get to the feedback segment, let's talk a little bit about Tie Grabber.
Okay.
All right, so if you want to join Tie Grabber, there are premium members-only episodes you can hear of True Crime Brewery, and you join by going to our website, tiegrabber.com. Now, as far as these episodes go, we just released our third in the OJ series, and our fourth and final one should be coming out any day now. And this is about the aftermath of the OJ Simpson trial. What happened to OJ? Was he an outcast? Did he get custody of the kids?
He was an outcast.
And what about him ending up in prison? He didn't go to prison for murdering Nicole. So that was a whole other thing. In Las Vegas, he committed crimes.
He did.
And then he's recently had the parole hearing. So we're going to go over all that. And then we'll be on to the next True Crime Brewery premium episode, which will be a totally different case.
Okay.
And we've been getting recommendations on that from listeners. So I'll announce what that is after the final OJ is released.
We have plenty of recommendations.
We do. And we also put out a preview on our True Crime Brewery feed of our new podcast, Watching ID. Our most recent episode was on the show Grave Mysteries, Season 1, Episode 1, so it's a brand new show. It was called Murder in the Chat Room. And that was a fun talk we had about that.
Yeah, it was an interesting case.
I thought that was a pretty good one. So I put like a 3-minute sample in our True Crime Brewery feed, and a lot of people listened to it. And we've got a lot more people listening to the second podcast now, so that's great. I'd like to thank everybody for that. And I'd also like to thank, I rarely do this, and I don't know why, I always forget, but our Patreon supporters. We also have our episodes released on Patreon, and we have people who support us there, and I hardly ever mention that.
Yes, but we do appreciate you Patreon people.
That's why I bring it up. Yep. Okay, so we're going to get on to feedback, but just remember, hunt a killer. It's an interesting thing to do. Because if you think you'd be a good detective, you can find out. Hunt a Killer is the first ever interactive investigation that delivers clues and correspondence from a serial killer to you every month. Sounds kind of scary, doesn't it?
It does.
You can apply for membership at www.huntakiller.com, and your first episode ships the same day you join. To help support True Crime Brewery, Hunt a Killer is offering our listeners 10% off when you go to www.huntakiller.com and use the code BREWERY.
And remember, open the packages at your own risk.
Thanks, Dick. Let's have a little music and get to feedback.
Okay.
Freckles in our eyes are mirror images, and when we kiss they're perfectly aligned. And I have to speculate that God himself did make us into corresponding shapes like puzzle pieces from the clay. And true, it may seem like a stretch, but it's thoughts like this that catch my troubled head when you're away, when I am.
Welcome to Feedback.
So I'm going to start off with a message from Roberta on Facebook.
Okay.
Hi, Jill and Dick. Greetings from brutally sunny Sacramento. I would love to hear your take on Dorothea Puente, the death house landlady.
Wow, I like that title.
She poisoned as many as 15 of her elderly and disabled boarders and disposed of at least 7 of them on her own property. And we have a whole bunch of great craft breweries here in Sacramento. Admittedly, a little too hipster-heavy on the IPAs, but do some research. And I'm sure you'll enjoy our local brews. Well, everybody's pretty heavy on IPAs these days.
Sure.
They're the darlings of the beer world.
Have we done any Sacramento beers? Because I know we've done a lot of California beers.
Don't think we've done any Sacramento, so
okay.
This might be a good case.
It's a pretty big case, so I think it's definitely a possibility. What did we learn about it?
Well, Dorothea Puente ran a boarding house in Sacramento in the 1980s, and she murdered somewhere between 9 and 15 of her elderly and mentally disabled boarders. This was all a means to get their Social Security checks.
I was going to ask, was it for money?
Of course.
Okay.
Now, Dorothea led a checkered life. She'd been married probably half a dozen times, had been convicted of prostitution. I think she was the madam and not one of the prostitutes, but who knows.
Okay.
She had a housemate who died allegedly by suicide, but there were mysterious circumstances about that. So It sounds like an interesting case.
It definitely does. Okay.
So,
yeah, let's put that in the to-do pile.
The to-do pile.
Yes, so that's
Roberta,
the highest honor, is the to-do pile.
We're green-lighting you, Roberta.
All right. Thanks, Roberta. So I have a Facebook message from Shauna on our most recent episode, the Deborah Green, First Do No Harm episode. Shauna says, my diagnosis for Dr. Deborah Green is that she wasn't suffering from depression, but had borderline personality disorder. What do you think? And she sent us a great link from psychcentral.com on borderline personality disorder symptoms. So the symptoms of borderline personality disorder include a recurring pattern of instability in relationships, efforts to avoid abandonment, identity disturbance, impulsivity, emotional instability, and chronic feelings of emptiness. That does sound like Deborah to me.
It fits her quite well, doesn't it?
It does. The main feature of borderline personality disorder is a pervasive pattern of instability in interpersonal relationships, self-image, and emotions. People with borderline personality disorder are also usually very impulsive, oftentimes demonstrating self-interest behaviors. So these are difficult people.
They are.
I used to have a friend here at the local hospital who was a psychiatrist, and she said these are the worst people to live with, are the people with the personality disorders.
Well, you never know who you're waking up next to. And that sounds like their home life, Dr. Green and Dr. Mike.
Dr. Farrar, yeah.
Farrar.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's an interesting concept.
Yeah, so yes, I think that's a great article there, Shauna. Thank you. Definitely fits her to a T, I'd say.
It does. Then there's a suggestion from Sarah. I have a suggestion for a good podcast if they haven't already done it. The Michael Dunn case. The police interrogation and trial are on YouTube and are fascinating. Now, this is a guy who was in Jacksonville, Florida for a wedding, and he stopped at a 7-Eleven or one of those type places to pick up some stuff, and he got into an argument with this kid and his 3 friends who were playing loud music in their car.
Yeah, it was known as the loud music trial. It's the shooting of Jordan Davis.
Yeah. So he shot and killed
very disturbing.
Jordan Davis.
Yeah.
And fired into the car at the other 3 kids, but he killed Davis.
He did, and he said that they had a gun, and there was no evidence that they had a gun. I think they just kind of might have smarted off to him a little bit. They had loud music, and he decided to pull out his gun and shoot him.
Yeah, but can't you see that scenario? These are mid-teens, think they know it all.
Yeah.
And this dumbass white guy comes up and says, hey, turn the music down.
Ugh, yeah.
So you're going to give him lip.
I would.
Yeah.
He's such an ass.
And then he pulls out a gun and starts firing, so.
The interesting thing is I saw this on a Dateline or 2020, one of those shows. I saw this case, and what I thought was interesting was his fiancée or girlfriend of the shooter. She was feeling sorry for him and everything, but she ended up testifying against him, testifying that he never told her that the kids had a gun, and pretty much, got him in prison. So I felt good that I think she felt compelled to be honest, and I gave her kudos for that. So, yeah, that's a great one to go in the to-do pile too, I think. Dickie, don't you think?
That'd be a good one.
Okay, I think we're batting, is it 300 when it's perfect?
1,000.
Oh, I think we're batting 1,000.
300 is what you get to bat if you're a pretty good major leaguer.
Okay. I don't know where I got that number. Okay, so we have another one here from Kim in Kansas City. That's where the Deborah Green case happened. So that's interesting that she wrote from there. But she says, question, she's talking about us. Have they ever done the story of Robert Durst and his missing wife, Catherine? I just saw a loosely based thriller on Netflix called All the Good Things. I've seen this too. It has Ryan Gosling and Kristen Durst.
Yeah.
She's got the same last name as Robert Durst? Dunst, okay. I was going to say, I didn't think it was the same last name. So Kim says, upon looking into the real story, I feel it's something Jill and Dick would do a great job of exploring if they haven't already.
We've explored it already.
Yeah, we haven't done an episode.
We haven't done the episode.
But we watched The Jinx on HBO. It was an awesome series.
Yeah.
So I would love to do it.
Yeah, it'd be one of those things, though. We already know the answer.
Well, yeah, there wouldn't be much mystery to it if you're familiar with the case.
We know the answer to a lot of these anyway.
But it is fascinating.
Yeah, because he had other people disappear on him.
Yes.
And he was tried for killing and dismembering a body.
But isn't it still going on?
Yeah.
There's still stuff going on with him.
Still stuff going on.
The thing I'm wondering is could we do it in one episode? Or would this have to be a series?
That might have to be more than one episode.
It might. So let's think about it. Let's put that in the maybe pile.
Okay.
Because I think someday we will do that case. I know I really enjoyed the series, and the case fascinates me.
It's a fascinating case.
It is. What a horrible, fascinating character he is.
So I have a response to First Do No Harm, which is the Dr. Deborah Green and Dr. Michael Farrar story from Bridget.
Okay.
Another great podcast. This was so sad. These children shouldn't have been alone with their mother while drinking and showing signs of violent behavior towards the father. Bridget thinks that Mike failed to protect his children as well by allowing them to remain living with her and not seeking help or counseling for the kids, as well as calling child protective services on her. Doesn't sound like he was truly asking for custody through the divorce either, more like a threat. So Bridget blames both parents. The children were pawns and forgotten in the midst of this nasty relationship. Very sad.
Yeah, I agree with that to a certain extent.
Mostly.
I think he underreacted.
He did, but he was pretty sick himself, so some of that...
That's true. He was physically ill. He had a lot going on.
Could be that he just physically couldn't take over the care of his kids.
But he managed to have an affair. Some of that energy could have gone towards the kids.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah. Bring me back to earth.
Could have brought his mother in or his sister in. I think there's more he could have done. Like when we were telling the story, we talked about how he had the oldest child, Tim, hide all the liquor bottles.
Yeah.
Those kids shouldn't have been left alone to handle her.
No, they shouldn't have.
That was a horrible position for them. And the fact that they died, it really is heartbreaking. And I think he did take some responsibility during her trial in, having a part in it. And I would think he felt some guilt. But I would agree that, you shouldn't leave those kids with her. She's mentally ill. I mean, it's kind of like Andrea Yates being left with those little kids, and she was mentally ill. You can't be leaving kids in the hands of someone unstable, even if it's their own mother. Even if he's not getting along with her, he should have brought in a friend or a family member, somebody, or like Bridget said, call Child Protective Services.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how much good they'd do, but in a wealthy home like that, I don't know if they'd really do a lot to act.
That'd be the difficult thing.
It depends how she would act when they came by. She could probably put on a pretty good act.
I'm sure she could.
Although towards the end, the neighbors, people at the school, everybody could see something was wrong.
Yeah, but kind of too late at that point.
Yeah, the kids definitely were let down by a lot of people, though, that could have saved them. I really believe that. So I have another one on First Do No Harm, and this is from Lee. And Lee says, I'm so glad you brought this case study to my attention. It's pretty much the mother lode in terms of containing so much psychiatric comorbidity in one person. You've got an official bipolar diagnosis with additional evidence of spousification, in parentheses, the extreme codependence with Tim, parentification, 2 children essentially acting as caregivers, parental alienation, which I've suggested previously occurs preceding divorce as well as after, straight Munchausen. Then I would argue the poisoning is at least in part by proxy. Then narcissism, achievement by proxy disorder, Asperger's, and possibly a little PDA subset. What's PDA?
I was going to ask you.
Oh, come on. We must know what that is. Personality disorder, I bet.
Okay.
I don't know. What's the A for then?
I don't know.
Okay.
But, yeah, personality disorder.
Possibly. Definitely, we did bring up the Munchausen, but then I hadn't thought of the poisoning of Mike as probably a Munchausen by proxy, or possibly. And I could see that. She might have enjoyed keeping him ill, but not for the attention like a parent would.
Yeah. Well, she's trying to kill him.
You think so?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think she could have been more effective in killing him if she wanted to.
Sure.
Maybe she wanted him to suffer. Well, why didn't she just kill him instead of killing her kids and everything?
Well, that came later.
Yeah, but she could have given him a lot more ricin and he could have dropped dead.
She wasn't figuring out how much to give him.
Yeah, I don't know. But she was smart. She was a chemistry major, a physician. But there's so much going on there. I think, like Lee points out, there's so many things.
There's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely the bipolar. There's, like we just went over with Shauna, the personality disorder.
Yeah.
And then I thought there was some Asperger's there in her general personality, with her not being able to connect with people.
Definitely.
And then all the dysfunction that came after it with, like they said, the way that they treated the kids, the way that the kids had to act as caregivers, just a big mess. I think you're right, Lee. It is the mother lode.
It surely is.
Fascinating case.
So, and I have a note from Sarah talking about the Dartmouth murders.
Okay, so that was the two teachers
who were murdered by the two kids.
Yeah, it was like this random thrill kill.
Yeah. So Sarah says, as far as children being tried as adults, I think some really evil teens think that they will get off easy because of their age, and that's part of the reason they go through with it.
What do you think of that?
Well, I think that's possible.
I mean, that's been presented, that if they're under 18, they think they can get away with more.
Right.
But do you think they really think that through?
No, I don't think they think at all. I don't think they commit the murder with the thought that we're young, we'll get away with it.
I don't think they even thought that far ahead.
It can be a factor.
Sure. Well, it seems like in gangs and things, at least on TV, they have the younger ones do some things because they'll get away with it. And I don't know if that's only in fiction or if that's in real life, but that seems to be a thing.
Right.
All right, what have you got there? One last letter.
Oh, I get to do this too. This is an email from David. Thank you for your latest episode on Deborah Green. I've checked the stats, and child homicide is a significant public health problem in America. In 2005, homicide was the fourth leading cause of death in both the 1 to 4-year-old and 5 to 14-year-old age groups. Most young children who are homicide victims are killed by a parent. Of American children younger than 5 years of age who were murdered over the 30-year period, from 1976 to 2005, 31% were killed by their fathers or stepfathers, and 29% were killed by their mothers or stepmothers. So that's 60%. Of the 40% not killed by a parent, most were killed by male acquaintances. The average number of children up to 5 years of age known to be murdered by their parents in the U.S. was 344 per year. However, underestimation of death rates pervade the literature. Hidden pregnancies, hidden corpses, medical examiner misjudgments of homicide as being an accident or a natural, like SIDS, death, undetermined, unwillingness to place responsibility on a grieving parent. In addition, estimates of the frequency of maltreatment and death vary, depending on the data source. Filicide is defined as the homicide of a child by a parent. Inspection of the psychiatric literature about parents who kill their children suggests patterns among parents and in family dynamics. Examination of the common parental motives can help to understand why individual parents kill. Causative factors include either fatal maltreatment, birth of an unwanted child, altruistic motives, an acutely psychotic parent, or spouse revenge.
Yeah. Ooh, spouse revenge. That rings a bell.
Doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So you were looking at these stats and just going through some Academy of Pediatrics stuff.
I did check them, and they were totally accurate.
These numbers are spot on.
They are.
They're chilling.
Isn't it, though?
Yeah.
I'm surprised. I really am.
So David finishes by saying, after listening to your episode on Deborah Green, I believe that her motive was spouse revenge. The one thing I'm not sure of is she wanted the husband to come back to her, or if she just wanted him to suffer for leaving her. At first I thought she had planned to kill her kids and herself, but actually she had no intention of killing herself. She was a cold, selfish woman.
I agree, yeah.
And he finishes, I agree with Dick, too, that she expected the third child to die when she jumped from the roof.
That shocks me, but you might be right. You still think that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it didn't seem like it was that difficult to break the fall.
Now, is it just me, or is the feedback the quality of the feedback we get is just soaring lately? I mean, people are really putting a lot of thought into it, and we're getting some great feedback, and the suggestions are awesome. I almost feel like we should pay for these suggestions. They're great.
Hush. We're not paying. The payment is that we take your suggestion and do the case.
That's right. We pay with doing an episode. That's right.
And talking about your beer. Maybe that's something we could do.
What?
So, say we decide to pick one.
Okay, the Dorothea case.
Okay,
Fuentes.
The Dorothea case.
Quit shuffling papers.
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to find it. So, if we have enough time to check with Roberta, who wrote the message in this suggestion.
Sure.
And say, Roberta, suggest a beer.
Okay.
And we'll review it.
Well, that's going to mean I have to keep track of these things. I'm not good at that.
Oh, well, okay.
If you want to take that on, sure. So we say, Roberta, we like your suggestion. Would you like to recommend a beer to go with it?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Or the Michael Dunn case. So same thing. Talk to Sarah and say, you got any recommendations?
Well, how about just from here on out, if you send a suggestion, send along a beer suggestion too if you want. And if we take your suggestion, we'll do that beer.
Even better.
Okay, that'll keep it simple.
Then we don't have to keep writing back to people.
I just don't want to take on any more stuff. So I think that would be good.
Yeah. So from now on, if you're going to suggest a case, suggest a beer to go with that case.
Yeah. And if Roberta or Sarah want to write to us and tell us which beer now, we'll take that on advisement.
We will.
I can't promise it, but we'll probably do it.
Right.
Yeah, as long as we haven't done it before or whatever.
Yes. Just remember, it's got to be a beer from that state.
Yes, exactly.
And even preferably from the city.
Whoa.
Well, because we've got all these Sacramento breweries.
Yeah, that's true. So maybe she suggested that. Maybe she could suggest the beer. That'd be great.
And it doesn't have to be an IPA.
No, not at all. Okay. Well, all your feedback is, like I said, it's great. So please keep it coming. You can send your feedback to us at truecrimebrewery@tiegrabber.com. You can also do it on our Facebook discussion group, True Crime Brewery Fan Discussions. Just go on there to join the group. You can also Facebook message us, Tiegrabber Podcasts. You can tweet us at TiegrabberPods. Any way you want to get a hold of us. I check it all, and I really enjoy the feedback a lot. I appreciate it so much.
We love hearing from you.
We do. We will talk to you next week at the Quiet End. Thanks again.
Bye, guys.